Hello guys, welcome to the voice blog, part 2 of a 2-part series. Well, the voice blog is going to go on for the next 6 months, but this particular series, which is Why is Singing So Hard? Or Why is Singing Hard? This is part 2 of that series, addressing the mental side of why singing can be difficult. Now, I'm by no means addressing every detail of the physical and mental side of singing and why it's difficult. Books could be written about these kinds of topics, but I just want to throw ideas out there really, and throw some of my ideas out to give people direction, to give people ideas about how to move their singing forward. So, why is singing hard? The mental sides of why singing can be hard for the struggling singer. As I said, I didn't say this in the last episode, but I was planning to. We are not machines. If singing was as simple as just the refinement of muscle memory, the physical side of singing, which I talked about in the last episode, it would not take as much time as it does for some to develop into good singers. To sing well, a learning singer must also overcome mental hurdles, mental blocks that are often in their way. Some of these can be conscious, some of them can be subconscious. This is a very complicated issue, and I can really only speak generally about some of the issues that people face, because it involves individuals, it involves fears, hopes, expectations and dreams. Each person is completely unique. That's important to remember. They have their own history and their own life story, and they will always bring that to the table when they're singing and using their voice. Each person has to figure out what their mental blocks are, what their struggles are, what holds them back from singing well, what their beliefs are in terms of what are they frightened of when they sing, what holds them back. And as each singer becomes aware of their unique difficulties mentally, they can begin to chip away at these difficulties day by day and eventually embrace them as a positive thing, and use them in a positive way. So, point 1. Well, this is really the main point I want to make today, and what I want to talk about today is, what do singers focus on when they sing? Mentally, what do singers think about? You know, because you can talk about the physicality of singing and improving singing and things, but what singers choose to focus on when they sing is vital, and it's very, very important, and it will be the difference between consistent failure in singing and consistent success in singing. So, what do good singers and struggling singers focus on when they sing? Good singers are focused on what they are doing in the present moment. They are focused on what they need to physically do to coordinate their voice. Good singers are rarely focused on the outcome. They're rarely focused on how they sound. They're in the present moment. They are not in the future or the past. So a large percentage of their mental power is focused on the task of singing. Struggling singers, on the other side of the spectrum, are focused on how they sound. They're focused on the outcome. Their mind is not in the present. It is anticipating the future. Struggling singers spend less time in the present and more time anticipating the future. and more often than not, their focus is on the anticipation of failure in the future. Struggling singers focus on the past and future as they sing, and spend less time in the present moment. Their mental focus is compromised, therefore. They don't have all their mental powers focused on the job of singing. Essentially, they are working with only a certain percentage of their mental powers. So again, like I mentioned before, in regards to the physical side of singing being compromised and inefficient, the mental side of their singing is also compromised and inefficient, because they don't have all of their mental focus focused on a single task. They have past, present, future, all fears and things all impacting their focus all the time. They're not focused on what they actually need to do to sing. So, mentally they're singing, as well as physically they're singing inefficiently. Mentally they're also singing inefficiently. So why are struggling singers focused on the future and the past? Why are they not focused on the present? Well, often they're in a cycle of fear, because their general experience as a singer, as somebody using their voice, their general expectation and their experience is one of not sounding particularly great. So they're frightened because they expect to sound bad, because in the past they sounded bad. And because they expect to sound bad, they anticipate failure in the future and do anything they can to sound better. This is where the outer muscles and all of that junk starts to gradually kick in over time. The singer is in a perpetual cycle that keeps reinforcing itself. And unfortunately, this cycle leads the singer to sounding worse. And because they sound worse, they do more and more to try and sound better. And the more they do, and the more they try to sound better, essentially the worse they sound. So you can see, as time gradually goes by, these cycles have reinforced and reinforced, and 10-15 years down the line, when they decide they want to sing again, they can be in a world of pain, because they're in such a cycle of fear and reinforcement of that fear that as soon as they try and sing, everything clamps in. All these outer muscles start clamping in. We're back to the inefficient muscle memory. They sound bad because of that. Because they sound bad, they try and influence the process even more. So the mental and physical difficulties, they're kind of intertwined. Well, they are very much intertwined. In a sense, they can be separated, but they're very much like conjoined twins. They're part of a whole. You have to deal with both of them. You have to address both of them in order to really move forward with your singing. So, saying all that, how do we break and move forward with this vicious cycle of mental and physical cycle? How is it done? Well, like a drug addict, the first thing you have to do is to admit you have a problem. Then, gradually, over time, with hard work, you can start to get back to the beginning, essentially, and abandon the fear of sounding bad, abandon trying to influence your voice with outer muscles that you don't really need, and gradually, over time, these cycles can be beaten and can be abandoned, and you can actually move to a place that is the opposite. The opposite of a vicious cycle really is, I'm not sure if this is a term, but I'm going to call it a positive cycle. You can get to a place with your voice where you're consistently successful with it, other people encourage you because they see that you're a successful singer, or you're doing reasonably well as a singer. And essentially, you do well at singing. Because you're doing well, you have the expectation of success. Because you have the expectation of success, you do better. And you're in a positive cycle of that reinforces itself positively. So that's ultimately where you want to work towards as a singer. You have to have extremely refined muscle memory and coordinations. Going hand in hand with that, the mental side of your singing needs to be focused on the present. It needs to have the expectation of success, and with the expectation of success will come success, and with more success you will expect success more. You're working towards being in a positive cycle of success rather than a negative cycle of failure. Right, I had something important to say. Yeah, it's almost like having to go back to being a child again. When children learn, they don't have all of this baggage. They don't have expectations about what is good and what is bad, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. They're uninhibited with their voice. And being uninhibited, not caring about whether it sounds good or bad, and just experiencing using your voice without judging, that is when the learning process really begins. Always remember, singing is just making sound. A sound in itself is neither good nor bad. It's just sound. Try and approach it in that way. Good and bad is what we put on top of the voice afterwards. It's the icing on the cake, so to speak, our judgments about what's good singing and bad singing. Efficient use of the voice, efficient muscle memory, isn't necessarily nice or good sounding. You can make really nasty sounds that are really the really efficient sounds. That's not a good sound, a nice sound, but it's an efficient sound. It doesn't have interference from the outer muscles. It's not a sound that is based in fear or judgment. It's just a sound. So, as a struggling singer, you have to move towards not judging sound in terms of good and bad, judging it in terms of the function of your voice. Is that an efficient sound? Should be the first question you're asking, not is that a good sound or a nice sound. Because if you can learn to use your voice efficiently, making good sounds and bad sounds is a no-brainer. Like singing well, if you can use your voice efficiently, singing well is a byproduct of that. Making nice sounds is a byproduct of that. It's not, it's the outcome. The actual goal is using your voice efficiently. The outcome is good singing. So you have to be focused on the right things. Right. Getting rid of all this junk, the outer muscles and the fears, is hands down the most frustrating part of learning to sing. It's an ongoing thing. It doesn't really ever end decisively. You get to a point where it becomes a lot easier, but it's always an ongoing work. But I would say the first few years, if you're really struggling as a singer and looking for these kinds of videos on the internet, and you're really struggling, the first few years are going to be hardest for you. Getting out of these cycles of fear, learning what muscles are being activated that aren't needed, getting rid of all that, moving towards more efficient use of your voice. It can be very, very frustrating at first, and it can throw up a huge number of will throw up a huge number of challenges to everybody that takes on this journey. Ultimately, if you approach singing with these kinds of ideas, in the long run you will thank yourself, and in the long run you will be way ahead of 99% of other vocalists out there who don't ever really think about these kinds of things. They don't really talk about these kinds of things. They don't really see singing in this way at all, a lot of them. Even good singers. I've got a close friend who is a great singer, but there's a lot of these kinds of things that she struggles with. Not necessarily as a singer, but just talking about singing as something that needs to be learned, something that needs to be worked on, something that isn't just God-given and natural. A lot of gifted singers find that difficult because, you know, they've got it under control, and they have got it under control. But once you're in a mindset like that, it's very hard to improve. So you have to be in a mindset of more towards anything's possible, more towards getting rid of any ceilings in terms of your ability. Just essentially a positive outlook. All of these things will help hugely in moving you forward as a singer. And if you're really ambitious and really serious about your singing, and you want to get your singing to a professional kind of level, then these kinds of things you're going to have to really work on. Anyway, I hope that this information has helped somebody out there. This is the kind of information, looking back, that would have really helped me, given me an idea of what I needed to work on, what I needed to start thinking about as I learnt to sing, because I have many memories of essentially feeling like I was in a pitch black room with putting my hands out, trying to find what the hell singing even was. And this kind of information would have given me a clearer idea. It would have started to turn turn the lights up a little. Please comment, rate and subscribe. I want to interact with anyone that has questions and anybody that has ideas for future voice blogs. Currently I have some ideas, but I'd like to cover topics that I'm interested in and that you guys are interested in. And thank you very much for listening. I will see you again. Take care, guys. Bye.